All right, so I'm going to end this session with the fact, just some timely advice for growers in relation to the seed that we do, or the varieties or cultivars we do have. You know, once we get a good variety, what can we do to ensure that when we plant it, it comes up and everything's good? So just some things to think about. The biggest thing is, right, we want to plant high quality seed. And when we do that, that's the first avenue of making sure that we get a stand. You want to buy that high quality seed, but there's some things that definitely you need to consider. You know, percent germin vigor can be reduced by the time it's sitting in a bag over the lifespan of before it goes in the ground, fluctuations in temperature and relative humidity as you hold those seed before you plant them. Percent germin vigor can be reduced by the way you handle that seed. I remember coming up in a buying point at home and basically getting fussed at quite a bit for throwing peanut seed in a bag. You know, and their whole thing was you handle it like you handle a baby. So they are alive. You can hurt them, you can crack them or split them. That's going to cause problems. The one guarantee that, kind of like everything else, we have no guarantees when it comes to Mother Nature. I think that is one of the biggest influencers we have when it comes to getting a stand. Definitely a tough thing that we've dealt with the last several years. Like I mentioned earlier, know your situation at planting and make adjustments accordingly. We get in a hurry sometimes. We got a lot of people that are planting extremely fast, especially with ground-driven rigs, and we're not doing or not having better stands from that. We're actually causing us to have very skippy stands. So we need to know, you need to make some planter adjustments and do some things there. Wes Porter's done a good job at looking at downforce. We've got to start there. We need to kind of clean up some of the things that we do to make sure we can get good stands also. Planting early. Hey, for the last several years with the acres that we've had, we've been planting in April. And heck, 2 years ago we planted a little bit in March. We need to know that we're planting that seed in good soil with good temperatures, good moisture. Let's not dry them in. Last year, it's the reverse of that, right? We don't need to mud in peanut seed either. We done a lot of that last year, and we had to make some replant decisions because of it. I know, hey, when we get backed up in a corner, we got to do some things, but we need to slow down when it comes to the seed. It's expensive, and do the best job that we can. I do want to update you on, again, the effects of how we handle this seed. We've been talking a lot with growers. The Peanut Shellers Group has really helped us out with this project. We wanted to see what happens to seed after the grower gets it or it's put in a bag. And for the most part, what happens when you go and pick up grower seed? Well, you put it in a wagon, you put it up under the shed. You see greenhouse. Well, don't key in on the greenhouse part of this. What we're trying to simulate there is what happens if you put it in a van body truck and leave it out, kind of just out in the sun or rain or whatever it might be. You're going to see fluctuations, huge fluctuations in temperature from nighttime, daytime, and we can see the same thing in a wagon. And so what you got here, we've also got office and cold room. We would never do that per se as a grower, but the idea that we need to put it in the best conditions as possible. These two are very consistent in their temperature and their humidity. That's all that we're trying to show here when we run this test. Whereas here, here we're fluctuating a couple of degrees, 25 degree swings here, 22 degree swings here. But look at humidity, 40 to 70, 30 to 85. These are not quite as big. And so we wanted to see, in fact, over a period of time, we subjected this seed, I had a graduate student, subjected this seed to three weeks of this storage, and then we started pulling them out every 2 weeks and putting them on the germination table, as well as we did a growth room trial to see, in fact, how does germination vigor affected by this. And what we found out, again, this is, if I set this up, this is percent germination on all four graphs. This is growing degree day units. This is how long does it take, or how many heat units on this gradiated table does it take to germinate or get 80% germination. It gives us somewhat of an idea of germ and vigor, kind of like a cold test. And if you look at the wagon and the greenhouse, This first sampling date is in orange, the last sampling date, and again, these are 2 weeks apart. This is blue, and you can see there's a pretty good separation between that first sampling date and then that last. So it does affect germ, we know that. We just started showing this, but look at the greenhouse. That's pretty stacked pretty close. I mean the cold storage as well as the office. You know, and so where we have more consistent temps and more consistent humidity, the seed seems to hold a lot better. And so how do we bring this and utilize this as a grower? Well, we're working on that. The shellers are working quite a bit with us. It didn't like that. There we go. Maybe it'll come back. There we go. It still didn't like it, but nevertheless. So the next thing we did was we took that same seed, those same storage conditions, and then we planted it in soil in this growth room to represent conditions in April and then conditions in mid-May, where soil temperatures were cool and wet versus more hot and somewhat wet as well. Just to see, in fact, all right, what does that do to us in these same storage conditions? Well, this thing is pretty busy, I do know that, but if you look, the solid lines right here, all 4 of them, basically represent where we have warm conditions. So where we had that growth room with the warm conditions, the rate of emergence, no matter what the storage condition, looked better than where we had cool. That makes a lot of sense. We see that every year. As you get to the middle, they start to converge and change a little bit. You see some of the dotted lines merging over and going in, and some of the other lines coming down. So we have this interaction of temperature and storage. And this is, you know, our stands here, how many plants come up, and this is days after we put the seed in. So we're running this out to about 18 days. Now, when you get to this latter part, you can see that the red solid and red dotted and green solid and green dotted, that is cold storage, and that is the office, which both of those are uniform temperatures for the most part, or consistent temperatures and consistent relative humidity. Our range, we had better overall emergence from both of those compared to where we had the storage that wasn't that good. So we are being impacted by how we handle that seed as a grower, as a buying point, whatever it might be. If we have these kind of condition changes or fluctuations, we are seeing it. Hopefully we won't see a lot of this, but you know, this is a proof that, you know, it's not just the seed. We can get great seed, but if we're not handling it properly, we're doing damage to it ourselves, and we need to kind of adjust that well. And most of you guys don't have an opportunity to do something different, but we're working on that. We're just going to see what we can do as we go forward. We're still working on some other projects. But just, you know, the main thing here is handle that seed the best you can, and hopefully we'll do the best we can in getting good stands. I'm usually not called out unless we do have problems, and we got to remember that the top 2 things we do worry about is weather. Germination and vigor is always part of the puzzle, but it's always part of it. It's not the sole thing. This weather is the biggest thing, but then we get into all of this. And so if, as growers, if we can do better with our planter setups, speed, how we do things, you know, try to eliminate the bad conditions, putting this seed in bad conditions, then we're going to do a better job. And so by all means, if you have any comments or questions on this, I'll try to take them. But let's hopefully have a better year. And if you do have some seed issue problems, let us know. We'll be happy to come out and help you in any way possible.